Have you ever stopped to think about what's running in the background of your job? I mean, beyond the daily tasks. There's this invisible operating system, kind of like the one on your computer, that manages everything, from your salary to how you'd sort out a disagreement. Today, we're diving deep into that very system, industrial relations and trade unions right here in India.
So, let's kick things off with a pretty big question. We all get a contract when we start a job, right? But is that single document really what governs the incredibly complex human relationship we have at work every single day? Well, the short answer is no. It's so much more than that. Because here's the deal. That entire relationship is managed by a massive, complicated system. It's a framework that's been built up over decades, and its main job is to try and keep everything in balance, balancing the needs of everyone involved, from a brand new hire all the way up to the CEO.
All right, so let's give this system its proper name. What are we actually talking about when we say industrial relations?
At its very core, industrial relations, or IR, as you'll often hear it called, is the whole formal structure for managing this web of relationships. Think about it like this. A company needs its people to cooperate to get anything done. But at the same time, workers might want better pay or more benefits, which can, create a little conflict with the company's goal of managing costs. IR is the entire playbook for how to handle that constant push and pull.
And the scope here is just huge, way bigger than you probably think. This isn't just about the big strikes you see on the news. Industrial relations covers the everyday stuff, the official way you'd file a complaint, the codes of conduct that say what's okay and what's not, and even ways for workers to actually have a say in how the company is run.
Okay, so to really understand how this system ticks, we've got to know who the main players are. Who is actually sitting down at the table when decisions are made?
So it really boils down to three key groups. First, you've got the workers, who are very often represented by trade unions. They're fighting for things like better wages, safer working conditions, and job security. Then, on the other side, you have the employers and their organizations, and they're focused on things like productivity and profit. And then there's the third crucial actor, the government. They act as the referee, the rulemaker, and sometimes even the mediator to make sure things stay fair and the economy keeps chugging along.
And these three groups interact in two main ways. First, there's what's called biparticism. That's a direct two-way conversation. The employers and the employees just sort things out between themselves. But then you've got triparticism, and that's when the government gets a seat at the table. This usually happens for the really big stuff, like setting a new national minimum wage or creating brand new labor laws that are going to affect everyone.
Now, let's zoom in on one of those key actors, because it's a huge one, the trade union. For literally millions of workers, this is how their voice gets heard.
Now, unions didn't just pop up overnight. Organized labor movements in India go way back to the early 1900s. But the real game changer was the Trade Unions Act of 1926. That was the moment they were given actual legal status, a formal right to exist and to operate. And ever since then, their role has been changing and adapting right along with the country's economy.
So what is a trade union really? Well, at its heart, it's pretty simple. It's a group of workers who decide to band together. Why? For one reason: strength in numbers. A single employee trying to ask for a change, well, they don't have a lot of power. But a whole group of them speaking with one voice, that is a much more effective way to get your rights and interests protected.
But look, it's not all smooth sailing. Trade unions in India face some really big challenges. Just getting an employer to officially recognize you can be a huge struggle. Many unions are also tied to political parties, which can, complicate their main mission. You've got rivalries between different unions, which can split the workforce, and sometimes low membership or a lack of funds can really weaken their power at the negotiating table.
Okay, so we've met the players. Now, what are the actual tools they use? How do they interact and get things done within this whole system?
The single most important tool, the absolute cornerstone of this entire system, is collective bargaining. This is the official process of negotiation. You have the union, representing all the employees, and the employer, sitting down to hammer out a deal. So instead of 100 different people having 100 different conversations about pay, it all becomes one, unified, and much more powerful negotiation. It's everything. And for those individual problems, there are structured processes like a grievance procedure. This gives a clear, step-by-step path for any employee to raise an issue. And you can see the logic here, right? It starts off informal, with a supervisor. Then it gets more serious, a formal written complaint. Then it goes to a committee. And if it's still not solved, it can go to a neutral third party. This structure is what keeps small problems from blowing up into huge messes.
And it's not just about direct negotiations. The system has other tools to keep things balanced. For instance, workers' participation schemes can give employees a direct voice in management decisions, which builds a lot of trust. And on the flip side, having really clear disciplinary codes means that everybody knows the rules and what happens if you break them. It's all about transparency.
Now, this whole system we've been talking about, it wasn't built in a bubble, and it is definitely not set in stone. It's constantly having to adapt to a world of work that is changing at an incredible speed. And the scale of this change is just mind-boggling. Just look at this number. Over 1 billion people. That's India's working-age population. That isn't just a statistic, it's a force that is fundamentally reshaping the entire labor market. It means you have a massive, young workforce with totally new expectations and new challenges for this traditional system.
And because of that massive shift, we're seeing the role of trade unions themselves start to evolve. A lot of them are moving away from a model that's purely about confrontation. The new focus for many is on collaboration with employers, focusing on things like skill development and training, and making sure that their members are ready for the jobs of tomorrow.
And that all leads us to this final, absolutely crucial question for the future. When the very concept of a workplace is being redefined, when you've got gig workers, tons of automation, and teams spread all over the globe, what does it even mean to be a collective? How does this entire system of industrial relations adapt to that new reality? That, right there, is the great unknown and the biggest challenge for the future of work.